and on this very important issue, I take no pleasure in participating in today's statements. While we rightly congratulate An Tánaiste Minister for Defence, Deputy Micheál Martin, on both the speedy publication of the report of the Independent Review Group into the Defence Forces and his commitment to implementing a comprehensive programme of immediate actions to address the shocking findings of this report, we should both acknowledge and regret that it took a sustained campaign by the women of honour to bring us to this point. I welcome our visitors to the public gallery today, who through their work over the years and more recently in their campaigning have done the state a great service. It is vitally important that the actions outlined by An Tánaiste are taken immediately. It is almost 2 years now since RTE Radio broadcast Katie Hannan's harrowing Women of Honour documentary. In that programme, the Women of Honour group highlighted just a small sample of the horrors and injustices experienced by both women and men of the Defence Forces. As the Women of Honour group stated 1 year later, in October 2022, and I quote, "Individually, we all had our own experiences and challenges to deal with. However, collectively, we decided to stand together to empower ourselves in the face of bullies, and we hope to empower others to do the same." Their tireless persistence and calmness in the face of what we should now acknowledge was bureaucratic inertia is not just commendable, it is inspirational. They have shown us that you either stand for change or you do not stand at all. I am most pleased to see that their primary and long-standing call for establishment of a statutory inquiry has been agreed to. I commend An Tánaiste Minister for Defence for moving to establish this statutory inquiry, which I hope can conduct the bulk of its hearings in public, and for committing to establish an external oversight body on a statutory basis. These are important decisions. They are important decisions both for the short-term and long-term future of our Defence Forces. Together they will contribute to the betterment of the Defence Forces. They will achieve these by a thorough investigation with identification of all issues and contributory factors and a comprehensive understanding of the organisation's failures. The regret is that it has taken us almost 2 years to get to this point. We should thank the Chair of the Independent Review Group, Ms Justice Bronagh O'Hanlon, and the other members of this group for producing such a stark and frank report. As An Tánaiste has remarked, the IRG pulled no punches in their findings. This is indeed a watershed moment for our Defence Forces. Like many other members of this House, I regularly engage socially with both former and current members of the Defence Forces. Many of these personnel are close personal friends. In recent weeks and months, I have asked many of them about this issue. And while none of those with whom I have spoken had personally experienced bullying, harassment, discrimination, or sexual harassment, I was struck and indeed dismayed by how many who said that they were not surprised or shocked by the allegations. More worrying was the extent to which they said that the mantra then and now was still one of never complain, never explain. So while the personal experience of the majority of those who serve in uniform and proudly wear those brass buttons emblazoned with the Harp of Ireland and the letters I and V for the Irish Volunteers may be a happy and constructive one, there is no denying that this is not the case for a large number, and to our shame, many of those are women. As Minister for Defence, An Tánaiste knows that the greatest challenge he faces is in delivering on the level of ambition 2 goal of the Defence Forces Commission report, namely increasing Defence Forces strength to 11,500 by 2028. That is a huge challenge, but one made more difficult by the fact that the Defence Forces strength today is over 1,500 personnel below what it should be. We should have 9,500 women and men in uniform today. In reality, we have less than 8,000. So the challenge is not just to recruit an additional 400 more women and men per year each year from now to 2028. It is to double that. The only way we can viably achieve this, I believe, and it's not an overly ambitious target of having 11,500 in our defence forces, is to recruit an additional 750 personnel per year, every year, from now to 2028, and to recruit a higher percentage of women. Let us recall that we had 10,500 in our defence forces just over a decade and a half ago. It is therefore vital that the toxic hypermasculinity culture, which, as the IRG report says, views women as occupying a low status in the defence forces, is driven out and eradicated. It is somewhat ironic that our defence forces are internationally respected for the high-quality training they provide to officers from other defence forces in the provision of fundamental human rights at the United Nations Training School Ireland at the Curragh. And we're all proud of that school and its work. But we must practice at home what we preach abroad. The Taoiseach's actions are an important step in achieving this, but it is just one step out of many that are needed. We must make sure that membership of Óglaigh na hÉireann is seen as both a fulfilling and rewarding career. We must address the recruitment and retention crisis that has long faced our defence forces. Only a few weeks ago, Deputy Howden, Deputy Durkan and myself discussed this matter with an Taoiseach at question time, the Defence Forces. We must stop telling ourselves that pay and conditions are not a barrier to recruitment and retention. They clearly are. We must listen more attentively to what the representative groups, RACO and PD4, are telling us. The numbers do not lie. Neither do the stories of Defence Force members having to sleep in cars between duties as they cannot afford to travel home or live closer to their posts. These may be isolated instances, but they have no place in today's world for people who are serving our country with distinction. No man or woman loses their basic rights to respect and a secure working environment at home just because they don their country's uniform. If anything, our obligations to those who wear that uniform should be increased, not diminished, as they are willing to put their own safety at risk to preserve ours. I represent the privilege of representing two border counties. We discussed it here a few weeks ago with Jen Taoiseach, the proud tradition that we had in Cavan over many, many decades, and the family connection. You met some of those people in the Lebanon recently. Families where generation after generation have served, not just serving our country at home, but doing us proud abroad as well. Could I say one of the proudest days I remember as a public representative in my own hometown in Cavan was the day the former Minister for Defence and our former party colleague Michael Smith as Minister for Defence reviewed the infantry group being deployed to Lebanon at that time. It was a real proud moment for all of us from our county. It was a real proud moment for the town. And it was such a proud moment for those families whose members were going off wearing the Irish uniform to don the United Nations uniform and to do our country proud in some of the most dangerous places in the world. We must never forget that, and the important role that our defence forces play in ensuring that our foreign policy is respected and that our standing as a country is respected right throughout the world. Taoiseach, I commend you on your reaction to this report today, and I hope that all the necessary actions can be implemented as rapidly as possible. That's the least that the people who have led this campaign deserve. Thank you, Oireachtas.
Thank you, Deputy.